Hey everybody, we're talking serious productivity shit now.
Serious productivity shit.
Yeah.
I don't know what we should call this one. What should we call this
Serious productivity shit.
one? Okay, serious productivity shit podcast.
Welcome. No, I don't know. What should we?
I don't know. Whatever. But this is where we talk about like art
legit
stuff.
talks.
Legit talks. Kurt talks.
There you go. It's called Kurt Talks.
Call it Kurt talks with
featuring Zach.
So I was reading this book. So we start with that. We'll start with
yeah,
that.
you're talking. Tell me a bit about that.
I was reading this book called Feeling Good. I heard it on the Impact Theory. Tim Bellew or whatever. Tom Bellew. He suggested everybody should read Feeling Good by Dave Burns. I feel like guys like us should read it too.
Definitely.
It's actually kind of like it's based on. It's kind of like to help you with depression.
Okay.
Not that
helpful.
Not that I have like crippling depression or anything, but there's times
just
where
the seasonal one.
Yeah, just the occasional,
We don't live in California where it's nice and sunny all the time.
Yeah.
No.
But like, it's actually pretty. Like, have you heard of cognitive distortions?
Cognitive like dissonance or
distortions?
A distortion.
So there's like a list
okay.
of cognitive distortions. I think that's what they're called. And it's kind of like
lay it on me.
So the book is the theory is based on your thoughts control the way you feel. So like because usually you think you're in a mood and then that's the source of it and whatever, and then you think a certain way. But the theory of the whole book is based on your thoughts control your moods and the way you feel about things. True. And so a lot of what they tell you to do is like when you're feeling a certain way about anything, they're like, what are you telling yourself in these moments? So like if you're feeling down or whatever about something, are you telling yourself like, oh, I'm worthless because I didn't accomplish whatever I said I wanted to accomplish, or like are you blaming something or whatever? So they break it down into like, well, this is part of it, is that there's 10 cognitive distortions that a lot of those things that you're possibly telling yourself are kind of, that's what's happening. So for example, like they're all kind of similar. I see. But one of them is
number one.
Yes.
No, I was kidding.
Overgeneralization.
Oh, okay.
Is one of them, for example, right? So
in what regard? Because
I'll give you an example, right?
Okay.
So it's like I'll try to like go through a couple of them and give you an example of each. So overgeneralization is like something went wrong, and then you're kind of like, oh, everything goes wrong all the time. Like of course that went wrong because everything goes wrong because my whole life. So you're overgeneralizing everything, right? Like. So that's one. Like I wrote them down
because I know that stuff in terms of behavior theory, and like sometimes you teach somebody something and then they take it and they use it in the wrong way in all contexts.
You could. I mean, I get. What do you mean? What do you mean example?
Well, without going too much into the stuff I do for work, but like when you teach a kid something, like a word that they need to learn, like open, for instance, like they need help opening a door, they'll say open. But then they start to just say open for every time they need something. Yeah. And like, hey, they want food, they just say open. And it's like, okay, now they've overgeneralized, so now we got to fix that. So that's how we call it in behavior theory, like overgeneralization. And it's kind of similar from what you're talking about in terms of you're taking like a bad moment and you're being like, oh, everything sucks, or some similar, like sort of. I'm probably paraphrasing wrong, but
I mean, a lot of them are like really similar, right? Like another one is all or nothing thinking, where you're kind of like, well, if I didn't do the thing, that means I'm completely a failure or something, right? Or like. Or it's like it's all or nothing, right? Like there's no like in the middle. There's no like, oh, I kind of did some good stuff today. Like I was a little bit lazy, but I did some stuff today.
Exactly.
You're just like,
you don't see that as a success.
You're just like, I'm completely lazy all day. I sucked.
You write off the whole thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then another one's magnification, minimization, right? So you might magnify something that was like minimal. So I actually think about that when I make videos or when we do stuff.
I definitely suffer from that.
Right, like when you draw or something, right? Like there's like one little mistake, and you're like, you're magnifying the shit out of it.
Yeah. And you see that when people show other people their art too.
Yeah.
Before they can even say anything, you're already like, oh,
I know. Yeah,
but the head is kind of big, or like I draw their hands shitty, like before they can even have their own opinion, Yeah.
But and then I also like there's another one, but basically kind of polarizing things or minimizing things sometimes, where I know, for example, like I'm really not good at taking compliments, I guess, or I'm not good at looking at what I am good at and what my strengths are.
Yeah.
And like really like rationally I am, but I know like when it happens in real life, when people are like, yeah, you're actually really good at that, I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, I'm like whatever. So like for example, like, I remember when I started working out more, one of my teammates at soccer was like, oh, you're really jacked and stuff now. And then I'm like, yeah, but that's because like I have more time than you, right? Because like, and which is facts. Like, I mean, he worked a lot more because he was older, so he had like a full-time job. I just had to like go to school for a little bit, and I had way more time to like work out. Therefore, I was like more jacked or more fit or whatever. But I mean, like that doesn't. I shouldn't use that as like something to take away from, you know, the progress I made and the work that I put in to like become, you know, like more muscular or whatever it is. But even like a lot of the things like. Even when we're like, oh, like Kurt, you like you've made a lot of videos and whatever, and like that's something I should feel good about, and rationally a lot of times I do, but then sometimes I'm like I'll use certain reasons that are truth, but like as minimizing them, I'll be like, well, yeah, but that's just because like that's what I want to do, so like I don't for some reason I use that as a minimizer, right? Like as opposed to like for someone else, obviously they didn't make as many videos as I did because they didn't want to do it or something like that. Like I always have these reasons, which is like it's true, but it's also like I should still feel good about who I am and the stuff I've done and like accomplishments. So like I was listening to the guy that wrote the book Feeling Good by Dave Burns. So Dave Burns did a TED talk, I think. It doesn't really matter. It was some talk, and then he was saying, you know, one of the first, because he was like he started as a, I forgot what they call it, but they you know, when you first become a therapist, you think it's like. It's usually you think you're so scientific, so you're like, well, it's probably chemical imbalances. So you try to like feed people pills or something, like you're trying to do all this research based on, you know, like the sciencey biological stuff, the chemistry, the neurological, all that, you know. But they're saying that like this approach, the cognitive, whatever,
distortions,
like this, well, not I mean just the cognitive part where it's your thoughts,
cognition,
that approach has been the most successful, apparently, or the most effective, or something like that. And so, like, he one of the first techniques they showed him was just, like, tell your patients to, like, write down some accomplishments that they you know, like, because usually a lot of this stems from thinking you're worthless, like your self-worth, your self-esteem, your self-love, or whatever. And so, like, if you can at least think of some things that you've done in your life that you're proud of, that like is a good starting point. Whereas like, you know, like I remember he was saying his first patients, you know, obviously they're gonna like, well, I can't think of anything, like I'm so useless, I haven't accomplished anything, I'm useless, I haven't done anything, right? And then
I couldn't even get the groceries.
Yeah, and then you come back next week after a while, you give them some time, and they just try to think of like one or two things, and they can think of like a couple things, you know, like that, and that's like a good starting point. And so, like, he's become, like, you know, like, obviously through... Oh, actually, and he ends the TED Talk with this really interesting story about... So, he was put to the test to use these techniques, in that, like, you know, you're supposed to write down what you're thinking. So, if you're ever feeling bad, feeling sad, or whatever, you're supposed to write down what you're telling yourself or what you're thinking those thoughts are, and then try to, like, you know, pair... Like, one way to do it is try to pair it with one of those cognitive distortions and be like, well, this is how it's distorted, how, like, you know, it's saying like, oh, I suck, I'm terrible, I suck at everything. Then you write that down, and then you look at the cognitive distortions and be like, well, okay, you're not bad at everything, you don't suck at everything, right? Like, that's because that's a distortion, right? Now you're all or nothing, overgeneralizing, right? And then I see you try to work through all these things, and then on the other side you write, you know, like what the truth, closer to the truth, what is, well, no, you're not bad at everything, you're probably good at these are some of the things you're good at, or whatever. And so, like, he was put to the test when his son was born. His son was, like, healthy, but then for some reason his son just couldn't breathe. So then they had to put him in, like, you know, like
those iron lung things.
The, like... Yeah, well, no,
I had no idea.
Well, they had to put him in the ICU, right? Like intensive care.
Yeah.
And then he's kind of like freaking out, right? So we went home. They're like, just go home and take a bit, like rest for a bit. So he went home and he was freaking out. And he's like thinking again. He's doing all these things, jumping to conclusions and all this stuff, right? Where he's like, well, you know, like if my son can't breathe, he's not going to get air, and then he's going to like be, you know, mentally retarded because he can't, you know, get air, and then whatever. And then we're gonna have to be taking him to clinics, you know, like all their lives, and then people are going to look down on me because my son is like mentally challenged or whatever. And he's just thinking all these thoughts, and he's like, okay, well, I need to, like, let's see if I can apply these techniques, right, for myself, right? And so he did, and then he was like, you know, like, well, okay, first of all, we don't know if if my son's going to be mentally retarded. That's like, like one of the distortions is like you're trying to fortune tell. It's like you can't tell the future.
We should probably try to avoid that term.
Well, that's what he said himself. Right? But
it's weird because like it is technically a scientific term, and I have seen like TED Talks too. When
it's just now
certified that they've said that too. I just don't know when's the proper time to use it. I guess.
Well, I mean, it's only if you're saying it with that.
Yeah.
But I understand.
Anyways, the
yeah. It's just because those are his words that he used, right?
Okay.
I obviously don't mean it in any.
No, yeah. Sorry, where were you?
He was like, so he was like, yeah, first of all, like, there's no chance, like, there's no for sure proof that, like, you know, his son is going to be, you know, like this forever.
Yeah.
Right? And there's, you know, they're going to clinics, whatever. And then, you know, people usually, like, they won't look down on him unless, you know, like, he treats them in a negative way or whatever. Like, he was trying to, like, fight through these by using those cognitive distortions as, like, proof of, like, okay, you're whatever, you're not being rational right now. Your thoughts are distorted, right?
Yeah.
And so it worked for him apparently. And then he went back to the hospital because he was like, oh, look at how self-centered you're being, right? He's like, my son needs me. So he went back to the hospital, and then he just saw his son, and he was just like, you know, like shivering and trying to breathe. And then so he's like, can I go like touch him? Like, can I like, you know, like whatever. And so then they're like, yeah, you just have to like, you know, have him in the cube, and he has to put his hand in the glove.
Okay.
So he like put his hand in the glove and just like put his hand on his forehead and was just like, hey, like, I just want you to know, like, you know, we're here and we love you, and you know, we care about you, and we're going to be here throughout, you know, for the whole step of the way, your whole life, whatever. And just gave, you know, he felt better about like, you know, being there for his son. And then as he went home, he got a call from the hospital, and they're saying like, you know, the weirdest thing just happened. It's like, your son is completely fine now, and he's like cuddling with his mom, and he's breathing completely fine.
Wow.
And like, I guess, you know, and you always hear those like crazy stories, you know, of like, I guess his calmness and like the lovingness of the father and whatever, like, you know, like, cause I don't know if you hear those things where like, if a baby, I don't know how they test this or how they know this, or maybe they test it with different animals or something. But you know, when a baby doesn't have like something to hold and hug, like a warm kind of like nurturing thing, like when it's a baby, like it just kind of withers off and dies kind of thing. Like I can't remember where I heard that, or like, but like a baby needs that kind of nurturing feel. Yeah. Like, you know, like it can't just like have the bottle. It needs something to like hug and like grasp and like warmth, right? That like touch. And so like, I don't know, that's what I associated that with which kind of makes sense to me in one of those ways that like, you know, it's not fully, you don't know the science behind it, but there is something to that. I'm sure like that just makes sense to everybody.
Just releases dopamine like crazy.
I don't know. Right.
Okay,
but anyway, so yeah,
I like this idea of these distortions.
The thing that I find that's interesting, I guess, is like rationally, I don't know if I have like a feeling of worthlessness ever, you know, like there's times where I'm like, bro, you didn't do the thing, like, come on, man. And I guess you could count that as a worthlessness thing where I'm like shitting on myself because I didn't do a thing, or I didn't do the thing I wanted to. But it's always like, I feel like maybe it's only rationally and not emotionally or whatever, but like I know that I'm capable of doing certain things. It's just that it's just a matter of like me being motivated to do them, which I know sounds like, I feel like that's me sounding a bit of like a bitch, I guess, and maybe I shouldn't call myself that in that way or whatever, but it's kind of like I was saying that Sunday, like last Sunday, where I'm like, oh, I have this time to do some shit and like I don't want to do it. And then I have that, it's like that Bill Burr thing, like clicks in, and we're like, what are you, like, you're just being a little bitch? You know, like, you're, like just do the thing, man. Like, come on. Like,
you're
stop
disqualifying the positive.
Yeah. He's reading the list. Yeah. But I mean, like,
cool. I like this rationale of looking at it. Being able to dissect where you're distorting, like you said, your productivity and stuff. And
I'm not that far into the book, but I can see it being like, you know, it's very rational, like, sit down with yourself, write it down, and figure it out. So, for example, like I was like, another one is the anti-procrastination sheet or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And he's saying like, okay, if you're really procrastinating on something, you should sit down with this sheet and like break up everything into like smaller tasks.
Yeah.
And
I do that a lot now.
And then try to like, he's like two numbers. Is like, one is how hard you think it's gonna be to do that task, and then the other number is how satisfied you think you're gonna be. So, like, what you think is going to happen
Yeah.
Right? Make those numbers. So like if you think it's going to be super hard to do that, then you know 10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then if you think it's going to be like not that satisfactory, then you're like 1 out of 10.
Okay.
Right? And then do it and then do the numbers again. Like, well, how hard was it? And you're like, oh, actually, it wasn't that hard. Maybe it was like a 4 out of 10.
Yeah.
Right? And then how satisfied were you after? Like, oh, 8 out of 10. Yeah, it was actually pretty satisfying.
I see.
Right? So he's like, that's one of the ways
that's an interesting
they work through procrastination, apparently. Like, I haven't tried this, like that one specifically yet, but the book is pretty interesting because it's accurate on a lot of the mindsets that you might have when you're in a certain mood.
Yeah.
Like for example, like he focuses on telling yourself like should and shouldn't, which is like something that I fight with a lot. Where I'm like, you should do. Like I say that to myself every day a lot. Of like, you should do this.
Yeah.
Like, you should work out. You have time to do this. You should do this. You should do the dishes. You should do this.
Yeah.
And then you don't. You're like, oh, you're shitty. And then it knows also the result of that, which I obviously lived through. The result of that is that if you don't do the thing, then you feel guilty, and then you do less, and then now you're just in a spiral of like you didn't do it, you feel bad, then you didn't do more things because you felt bad, and then you keep going, right? And you just and it's interesting because the book obviously can recognize those things, like all these specific moods.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know also like I read that psychologically, like talking to yourself really can help you work through things, like literally
in the right way.
Like obviously if you're putting yourself down and be like, you fucking suck, like, that's not gonna help. But like if you talk through the problem like out loud to yourself, like a lot of times it helps you work through things and be more productive, which is weird. But like I've had those moments too where I'm like, Zach, you're being a fucking idiot right now, stop like freaking out. This is not a big deal. Like you just have to do this and this, and then you're good. Like why are you getting upset? Like, you know, and a lot of times that has helped me through a lot of things because I'm like, okay, it's literally just doing this. Like, it's not a big deal. And yeah, but one thing I wanted to, this kind of could lead into is like kind of going back to my roots lately, and what I mean by that is like what really helped me start to really consider the process of making comics and stuff, and like the commerce side and like being productive in that sense. I used to listen to a podcast called Webcomics Weekly. I even have a book by these people, but a lot of it just like it brought me back to that mindset of like, okay, I'm not crazy for thinking like this. You know, this is how a lot of comic artists feel and stuff. And it's like, you know, it's also making me think, it's like, you know, if you don't do anything or do the thing, you know, it's not gonna happen. And I know so many creative people that are kind of just waiting around for basically someone to just cut them a check, you know, and make them famous and stuff. And it's like, it doesn't really work that way. Like you have to go out and you got to put in the effort. And,
well, I mean, they're also like I myself am guilty of this too. It's like you're waiting for like when I have that time.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like
well, I'll do it when I have time. Like when I have like a couple days off, I'm going to do it.
Exactly. But it's like, how often does that happen nowadays? It's like you have to grind it out a bit. And,
it's like that, the no complaining thing. Right, that Gary Vee will talk about. All these people,
exactly.
like all these successful people talk about the no complaints thing, and it's like I feel this, and I feel like this almost works. I've embodied this too much for me almost to the point where I guilt myself too much into it of like thinking like this. But it's that whole like what you're saying is it doesn't like I could be like, oh, you know, that week that I worked too much or like I'm feeling tired or like I trained or whatever and I don't have the energy.
Yeah.
And you can like sit there and cry about it and just be like, well, I work too much and I don't have, you know, whatever. But the thing is like you have to realize like you're in control. Like life's about options. Like I don't have to train.
Yeah.
Right. And I actually probably could move back home if I really wanted to and I'd have more time. If I really, you know, if I'm really crying about it, right? And so it's like, no, I chose this. And like, if you don't have time and you're not going to do it, and you didn't have time to do it or whatever, well, like, then you didn't have time to do it. But that doesn't mean you're what? Like you said, you're not entitled now to, like, have the benefits or, like, have the time or whatever. Like, if you didn't have the time, you didn't do it, then you didn't do it, right? It's kind of like people that are, like, for example, people are always like, oh, I want to train or I want to get back into training. And then you're like, oh, well, you should get back into training. Oh, yeah, but I work too much. I don't have time. So, like, I don't know. And they're like, well, okay, well, then you work too much and you don't have time. Then I guess you're not going to do it. Then, like, oh, I don't know what I can tell you.
A lot of people say, they'll come up with excuses.
Like, right? Like,
I also I've been watching Gary Vee and stuff, and I've been very conscious about the complaining thing. And I told myself, I'm like, you need to complain less. But I also, like, I'm like, it's so ingrained in my humor to just fucking complain about something because then I just pick it apart and we joke about it, but, like, in a cynical way. But I'm also like, I can't just keep complaining about things. Because I guess where it's like a hamster wheel, you're just worrying and running in like a fucking in place. But I need to get to the next spot.
Well, because what I equate that to sometimes too is like maybe you don't, like, not you specifically, but like people that say these things, it's like maybe you don't actually want to do the thing. Exactly, then, right? Like maybe you're just saying it because like a common one too is like I'm not confident. I have that too, right? Like, oh, I'm not confident yet. Like I feel like I'm not that confident of a person to do those things, like whatever, like make a podcast, make a video or whatever, or put yourself out there. Yeah. And like I understand that, like I think everybody can relate to that.
Oh, for sure. We're so worried about judgment.
But it's like if you're not, like, you kind of have to just do it. Yeah. Otherwise, like if you're not confident, well then I guess you're just not going to do it. Then exactly. You don't do it. Like there's no waiting till you have confidence. No. That's not how you get.
You build confident. Up to it.
Yeah. You just do it or you don't.
Do it and then. Right?
Yeah. Is that kind of what you want? Your roots?
Yeah.
Back to your roots?
Well, it's helped me because also a lot of times, like, I kind of like, I'm looking at myself and I'm like, right now, the way this might be one of the distortions too, but I don't know whether this is healthy or not, but I'm looking at, I'm like, right now, the way you're going, you're a hobbyist and you want to be a professional and you need to stop letting things like bog you down and stuff. Stop worrying about the shit that doesn't matter. And you just need to like get back into like enjoying the process, and I saw myself getting, because there's so many times where you're so worried about making content. Like lately I've been trying to do TikTok stuff because you got me on that and stuff, and then every time I sketch though I'm like, oh, I should be filming this, but then I'm like, oh, but now I don't want to draw because I'm so worried about getting the right footage, but then like last night I just like was like, oh, I could draw right now, and I can film me drawing, but I was like, you know what, I just want to go back to enjoying like just sketching and not worrying about it. Like, hey, I just want to get better at this aspect of drawing, so I'm just going to practice right now. I'm not even going to worry about it being content. I'm just going to make it for the sake of getting better. And I still want to keep making content and stuff, but I realized I was like letting a lot of these things like buckle me down because I was just like, I have to film it, and then.
But see, like, I don't know, that reminds me of that mindset like we were talking about last week, and that I've been, is that like if you made like certain pieces of content that were for putting out content that were like value pieces or whatever, like, oh, I don't know, this is a basic how to draw a head, or even that, just like and like something pretty entertaining, just a time lapse, so if you like put one of those out, then you're like done with that. Exactly.
Done. Then I can go do.
Then you can go sketch without feeling bad about not filming.
No, exactly. Right. I just like, I've been telling myself that too. I'm like, I'm not giving myself enough time to do both those things. I'd like literally wait till the last minute at night, like before I need to go to sleep, and then I'll be like, hey, this next 20 minutes is.
Back to the book is like they made another thing that I tried to do it today and yesterday just to see, but they're like try to plan out your day, which I know it's such an obvious thing, but like they're like every hour, and then like have a perspective like what you think how like difficult, so it's either M or P. So M is mastery, which is how hard you think that task is going to be. Okay. So you either make it that, or the task is something that's pleasurable, right? Like, I'm going to set aside an hour to play Pokemon. I see. Okay. Right. That'd be a P, right? And then, but if it's like, I'm going to set aside this hour to edit a video, you rate it with an M because that's like how difficult you think it's going to be. Oof. And then at the end of the day, you go back and you look at like what you write down what you actually did, like during those hours.
Ate Cheetos.
Yeah, it could be a simple thing. They're saying like even like brush your teeth or something. Oh, wow. But the goal of it is to kind of give yourself tasks, and then look back on it and be like, yeah, I actually did some of these things. Yeah, so like, it was actually a pretty productive day, and I don't have to be mad at myself for not doing anything because I did some stuff based on this list that I already made for myself, and then I did the things. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. I'm doing it right now.
I'm gonna try that. I'm going to give it a shot this week.
They literally have it like every hour planned out, so that's interesting.
Okay, that's a lot. I'm going to try it this week. We'll see. Yeah. Every hour, though. Whew.
Well, I mean, I guess it gives you some room to, like, make some of them less, like, more menial tasks. Like, wash the dishes or, like, brush your teeth or, like, fold the laundry.
I mean, feasibly, that's only, like, how many hours of the day do you need to plot out?
I think they have, like, 16 on there.
Yeah, I was going to say 16 roughly. Around there.
Yeah.
Assuming you actually sleep 8 hours.
Yeah. Another thing that I've been doing or watching or been interested in is I don't know how I got into this or whatever, but I was watching this video with Seinfeld, and he's promoting, or he's like did you know Seinfeld does transcendental meditation? So he's if you look it up,
I love the show, so
YouTube,
I'm in.
So he was saying how the show has his name on it. It's his name. It's his show. Yeah. So there's a lot of pressure there, and so one of the ways, or he thinks a big reason why he made it through, heading the show or doing the show or whatever, every all the episodes, how many hundreds of episodes or
there's
whatever.
9 seasons and there's 20 something episodes a season.
Yeah, all that. He was
it's a lot.
He attributes a lot of that to his meditation, transcendental meditation to be specific.
Okay.
And so he was every time, you're supposed to do one in the morning and you're supposed to do one at lunch. And I'll get into what it's supposed to be in a second, what you're supposed to do. Yeah. But he was every time everybody would go to lunch, he would take 20 minutes. It's supposed to be 20 minutes. 20 minutes and go do this meditation thing. And he's saying that's kind of what got him through. And the analogy that he uses is kind of
Sorry, this is Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so one of the benefits of it is you feel more energetic or whatever. You can get, it's the analogy is if you give someone a charger for their phone or something, it's kind of now I can plug my phone in and I can just use it indefinitely. It's a recharge. That's the analogy everybody has, is it's a recharge of your mental, and it's kind of it gives your mental and your body just peace and rest for a bit, I guess. Mm-hmm. And so you're just more motivated. Oh, I was watching, I think it was, the other one was Joe Rogan was talking to some other guy that was talking about it too. Obviously Joe Rogan always has these guys on, but he was saying how it's kind of usually you have kind of a slump after lunch or whatever. And you're kind of less, you're kind of pushing through the last bit of the day. Yeah. I have those too sometimes, right? Yeah. But he's saying if you do this meditation stuff in this way, it could help you get through that and you have more energy or whatever. This is just the theory and what I've heard. These are the anecdotal, I don't know if they're anecdotal. These are the, what do you call it?
Case studies?
Whatever. The people that have tried it and are advocates of it.
Sounds like anecdotal.
Yeah, right. But so what you're supposed to do, I don't know if you guys have tried Headspace, but it's sort of like Headspace. So I
don't know what that is. So.
Headspace is an app that kind of helps you calm, it helps you, it's guided meditation basically.
There's a few of those I've seen. One of them has Braun from Game of Thrones doing the voice.
Oh, that's funny.
Anyway, sorry.
So what you're supposed to do that I've seen consistently through a lot of these, because I did a little bit of research and tried to look up certain guided meditation techniques or whatever. Yeah. And a very common theme is you're letting your thoughts run, but you're trying to just make it seem like they're just there, they're part of the noise and the environment that you're in. So right now, let's say if we just heard sometimes you hear the heater turn on or something, or you hear a car pass outside. So the analogy is all your thoughts are cars on the street, and you have to imagine yourself as you're just sitting on the bench watching these cars pass by. Or the other analogy is you see the storm outside, and instead of being in the middle of the storm with all these thoughts, the rain and all this shit crashing down on you, you're inside and you're looking at the storm through the window, and the storm's not really affecting you. Okay. And so I guess you transcend your thoughts. I don't know. But I don't know if that's why it's called that. But that's the common kind of idea behind this, is that, for example, you just kind of sit there and you let your thoughts run. You don't try to focus on something necessarily, but you don't let your mind I guess you just kind of let it run for a little bit, and then slowly try to start breathing a little deeper or whatever. And I don't know, a lot of it so it depends on who you talk to or follow or listen to the video or whatever. Is some people are don't force yourself, don't try to force your breath to be slower, or don't try to focus on anything. Yeah. Try to just let everything be. And for some reason, while I was trying to do this, Bruce Lee came to mind, where he's empty your mind. Yeah. Be like water, right? That's kind of what I felt or thought of. Kind of is kind of just let it be. Let everything be. Right? One guy, I can't remember, one of the main guys, the biggest advocates or whatever, Bob Roth or something, I think is his name.
Bob Roth.
Yeah. Not Bob Ross.
I know. Right?
Yeah. So I can't remember if that's what his name is. Oh, okay. But he was saying like, you identify, you realize that, your breathing is involuntary but also voluntary. It's like it's both. It's like there's all these things going on around you, like the cars and the sounds that are involuntary, whatever. But at the same time, it's sort of like you're also creating the world yourself instead of the world existing around you, because your ears are hearing the vibrations, your drums are vibrating and sending signals to your brain and whatever. So you're not, I don't know, this part didn't resonate with me that much, but he's like, you're fully in control and you're fully not in control, and it's all at once or whatever, which it makes sense. It's just that it didn't really help me transcend anything. But I get what he's saying. If I think about it, if I lean more into the involuntary part of like just let it be, like be water kind of thing, like just that's the other, there's so many analogies with this. Is there like the top of the water is rowdy, just rough and waves and crashing and whatever, but the depth underneath all of that is the general state of the ocean, and the water is calm because it's the ocean's so deep that it's usually just still underneath the water. Whereas, your thoughts are the crashing waves and blah, blah, blah. So they're saying you're supposed to do one in the morning, which is like 20 minutes or whatever, which I've never done one for 20 minutes. I did one for like 15 minutes, which was a long time. Yeah. And then you're supposed to do one in the morning, and then one kind of in the mid-afternoon-y, kind of like, when you're kind of about to hit that slump. And it's funny because someone was like, oh, like, I think they said something to Jerry like, I barely get enough sleep, so how am I supposed to fit this in? Yeah. Right? But he was saying, like, he made a joke about, like, well, when you sleep, like, look at your bed when you wake up. Like, you didn't fucking rest. That was just, your bed's a mess. Like, there was a war going on in there. So, like, you're better off waking up even earlier just to do this so that you actually force yourself to actually just rest. Instead of, like, because you can, like, some sleep doesn't always feel very restful.
No, today I feel tired and I slept a lot.
Yeah, like yesterday I slept, like, all day. Like, I woke up and then I took another nap. And then, like, that one of those days where you're just, like, napping and sleeping and barely doing stuff. Yeah. So, I can kind of see what he's saying there, and we'll see. Like, hopefully this is actually as fruitful as they say it is. But this is why, because I was listening to Tim Ferriss on Gary Vee. Always goes back to Gary Vee. But he was saying, like, he wrote this book. That wasn't Tools of Titans. That was one of the, Tribe of Mentors. So Tim Ferriss, like, asked all these different, like, people that are, like, successful in their field, like all the way from, like, Olympic skiers, like, whatever, athletes, all the way to, like, like Tony Robbins and, like, big investors and business gurus and whatever. And he said actually, like, a consistent thing across a lot of them is they have some sort of morning ritual that often includes some sort of meditation, transcendental meditation. Yeah, that's just what he said.
Isn't Tony Robbins?
Robbins.
Yeah. He talked a bit about his. I remember in that podcast I sent you. You'd already seen it, but
meditating.
Yeah, or in the morning he said, like, I think of, like, 5 things I'm thankful for, or something like that. I don't know. And then Gary's like,
Gary's the other way.
Yeah, he's like, I just imagine someone I care about died, and then how awful that would feel, and how blessed I am currently, stuff like that. So
I think that reminds me of that, like, the Nietzsche thing of, like, I wish suffering upon everyone so that they have, like, a wider spectrum of, you know what I mean? Because if you can imagine, hopefully imagine rather than experience, but if you can imagine, or if you had an experience that was so terrible, then everything up here is just great. Exactly. Whereas, like, if you look at, like, my parents or, like, some people I know, right, is their spectrum is here, right? So it's like, oh, like, you didn't do the laundry, or, like, the roof is leaking. That's, like, the worst possible thing. You're gonna, like, die. It's like, it's almost the equivalent of dying, like, because they're so stressed out about it. Like, the roof is leaking. Yeah. What are we gonna do? Right? But if you had, like, something more whatever, which my parents, like, one of them has, but it's just and I understand that way of thinking is that, like, if you're used to the, and I've had some experience with that myself. I think we all
have in some way.
Like, not anything crazy traumatic, but just like a simple thing. Like, I remember when I went to Vietnam, just to travel or whatever. It's like, you have, like, it's just kind of dirty sometimes if you're backpacking through, like, the tropics, like the farmland or whatever. For sure, it's like, I remember I forgot to put my fly net down, and then I came back to the mattress and there were just, like, bugs all over it. Just because it's like we're in like the forest, kind of like a tropical forest kind of area. There's kind of like a farm. We're out in the boonies.
I see.
Right, so they have this kind of like.
I never went that far out when I was in Vietnam.
Yeah, and then so
even then it was dirty, but it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, so we're kind of it's kind of like camping almost, kind of, right? So I didn't put the fly net down. There's all these bugs, and I swear to God, like every bug on the mattress was a different bug.
Jesus.
I didn't see any bugs of these I've ever seen in my life, and every single one I saw was different because there's so many different bugs out there.
Yeah.
And then at first you're like, oh my God, like holy crap. And then I was just like, okay, well, I just wiped them all off, right? Just quickly, gross, and then you're like, you know what? I'm only here for like a day or two because it wasn't like a long excursion.
Yeah.
It was just you go out for a couple days and you go back to the city and stuff. And I'm like, it's only like a day. You just got to tank it, and then I just put on my hoodie and stuff, and then I'm just laid there. But like like you could say because of a lot of these like minor experiences, like now my like tolerance for things is a lot more like. Whereas before I might have freaked out more when I saw bugs and stuff. Whereas like now I'm just kind of like, I mean, it depends if certain bugs I'm not super comfortable, but I think in general I'm pretty okay with most bugs now. Like I'm just kind of like, oh my God, I have to kill this bug, or like I've actually tried to like. You put the thing on the bug. If I have an easy access to the outside, I'll put like a container on it and try to slide it and let it out.
That's what I do now a lot too. Even big scary fucking spiders, but
spiders
it took me a long time to get.
No, but spiders are easier to do that with.
Oh, they are.
Because when you're trying to squish one, you can feel the panic.
Yeah.
Right, where it's nicer to just be like, all right, you're in this container, and then
exactly.
it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, go away.
Yeah, but it's funny how I don't know. I thought that was interesting. Like,
it's like it was only 2 days of my life, and
and it actually it was right. Like that's the truth.
Yeah.
Right, but I forgot why we were talking about this.
It's about meditating.
Oh yeah, meditating. I don't know.
And not you talked about like the.
Yeah. I remember that.
But
something else, if you want to segue with no segue into something else.
Yeah, smooth segue.
Going into December is like I'm taking more time. Like this is something that it's because I'm worried a little bit, which I shouldn't be, but it's like I'm taking a little bit more time off, like every week. And so I have time to focus on certain things. Like for example, I miss when I had more time when I wasn't working as much, when I was training a lot. So like I had more time to train, and we were doing videos. Is when GMV was going pretty hard too.
Yeah.
So I was training a lot, and I was doing lots of video stuff, and I missed those times. But just work has like slowed that down. Yeah. So I'm taking this month to like experiment with like what am I gonna do with the time that I have.
Yeah.
Whereas like I don't. Like GMV is not going as hard, really. We're not really going at all, actually. Which nothing bad about that or whatever. And I'm also not like super. GMV was a channel of videos that we used to make videos on this channel.
Like videos.
It's whatever. I mean, it was cool.
That's where we started.
Cool. Yeah, but I'm not like super hardcore into training at the moment either. So I'm just curious, like, what am I gonna do in these like extra hours that I'm like? It's almost like I'm
find yourself.
Yeah, well, like I'm like worried that I'm just gonna be like, wow, you should have just worked. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you should have just worked and made money. Well, but the thing is, like,
is a distortion, and you need to figure that out.
Well, it might not be a distortion. Like that might actually happen, right? Where I don't actually do that much productive stuff.
Because you're doing it. I shoulda though.
Yeah, but
gotcha.
But I think the key next step to that is like even if I did work, right? Like in these hours where I potentially wasted, it's like, well, what am I working for? You know what I mean? Like, let's say even if I did work more hours and made even more money and have all this money, it's like, what would I?
Money.
Like, what would I do with it, right? Like, I could buy some nicer boxing gloves because that's what I've been looking at lately, or I could buy some more video games, I guess. Yeah. But that's not really what I'm looking for. Like, that's not the hole in my life that I'm trying to fill. No. Right? Like, the hole in my life that I'm trying to fill or figure out, at least at the moment, is like, what am I gonna do with a lot of my life to like be happy or like feel successful or whatever it is. And so like I'm trying to figure that out. Like I was saying, I was making like this video that's kind of like a video game donkey, basically like clipping out the funny parts of videos of my gameplay of me playing Jedi Fallen Order, for example, or whatever. So that's one thing I'm trying to work on. Cool. But I'm just curious, like, what I'm gonna do in these extra hours. 'Cause even today, I was like, for example, tomorrow I'll have to work, so I'm like, I'm gonna train in the morning for sure. I don't know if I'm gonna go training a second time in the evening, but I have like the time to like figure out and do that. I could work on, I could do both. This is like now I have the time to do both potentially.
And
right.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's where I'm at. I don't know if that's, we'll see how that plays out. I'll update so people,
I'm still working 6 days a week and trying to find time for everything.
Well, I think, but also like you and even you know, like my girlfriend is like, you guys are working a lot, but it's because you guys want to go to school. And there's a thing.
There's a goal.
There's a goal. Like, yeah, there's something. Like, that makes sense. Yeah. Whereas, like, for me, it's like, you know, I feel like, I actually feel like that sometimes too right now. I'm like, fuck, should I? Like, I'm worried about it. I'm like, should I be taking this, like, that? And I'm not even taking that much time off, but I'm taking, like, an extra day off.
It's funny how we have to feel guilty about taking time for ourselves. Like, you know, like, you look at European countries and they get, like, so many different vacation days and way more vacation. And it's
so much about chilling.
It makes them more productive, though, as a result. Like,
that's true.
I think Microsoft recently in Japan, they experimented with the 4-day work week. And they noticed that everybody was, like, 10 times more productive. Like,
really?
It was, like, there's a good percentage of, like, productivity.
I want to look that up.
You should look it up. But, yeah, so, like, you know, having time for yourself, even if you're using it not how you entirely want, like you still need that like recharge time, like going back to the meditation kind of, even like
it's because like you feel
guilty though because you're like, I just played video games all day and I want to be, you know, doing something that's self-fulfilling and blah blah blah.
Exactly.
But you know, you also need that time to like sometimes just to chill, and like you're still like, for how you are currently, I know you're trying all these different avenues because you're really trying to find what works best for you. And there's nothing wrong with like taking that extra time. Like you should have to feel guilty after it if you go like, okay, I played Pokemon and I beat it and I wish I made a video, but it's like you needed to do that, you know.
Yeah because I mean there's also like, I think a lot of people feel this. Like I was talking to Bobby, and Bobby was saying like, yeah, like he's like, oh well, I remember, not, he wasn't trying to like tell me to do anything, but he was like, you know, I remember when I took off time, like he was saying after he got back from a vacation or whatever, and he took a little bit more time, and he thought maybe he would do some more self-fulfilling productive stuff, but he felt like he didn't really do that much.
Yeah.
Which I think there's a couple of stories, like Cilio was like that, I think too, where he, you know, when he got, you know, he thought he was gonna like work on certain things at certain times where like he didn't, and then it just kind of, he just ended up chilling or whatever. Yeah. And I mean, and that's kind of like this is my test for that. It's like, well, I have a little bit of time. Let's see what I do. Like, I'm actually going to do the things, or should I just work? But at the same time, I also think, you know, if I don't know what I'm working for, because I know that's just a common thing that most people, well, yeah, you just need to work because you need to make money. And then if you can make more money, then you should make more money, because why would you not make more money?
Yeah.
Except, but I don't know what I'm making the money.
You necessarily happy.
Exactly. Like, what am I making the money for? Like, what's the goal? Right?
Yeah.
Like, am I saving it because I want to
new equipment?
Exactly.
Or something, or,
right. Like something like that, and then that's gonna fuel towards the ultimate goal, which is making better content or something.
Exactly.
But like, I don't have that yet, so it's kind of like, you know, like obviously I still have to like sustain myself.
Yeah.
And whatever. Sure. So and I think it's okay to like maybe work a lot one month and then take an extra day off next month or something like that. Maybe.
That's fine,
but like, I'm okay for now. Like, I will be okay for this month for sure. I'm not even taking that much time off.
Yeah.
Right? But I guess I feel like I'm like, again, that Bill Burr thing where I feel like I'm being a bitch, where like I always feel like I need to be some sort of like heavily motivated to actually do a thing. So for example, like, I'm pretty confident I would have a decently like successful, like, I don't know, MMA career if I like wanted to, because I know I've seen myself, like, I have the capability, like the athletic capabilities, like just because I've been gifted or whatever, like I've been, like, I played soccer for so long that I'm just in shape, and it doesn't take me very long to get in shape. And I also have like the coordination of like, you know, like I teach class and stuff, and I can see, like, no offense, but like, you know, I have certain coordination capabilities that some people don't, quicker than others. So like, I feel like I could, but the problem is like, I know I don't love MMA like I've seen other people do, which I know, I guess I don't have to love it, but like, I'd rather love it if I'm gonna go into it like that.
For sure, yeah.
And like, I've seen the people that do love it. You know what I mean? Like, I always go back to this because it's such a good example, and it's kind of like, I wish I had this, where I don't know if I was talking to you about him, but one of the guys I trained with, Josh, he's like, he loves it. Like, he also took extra days off just to like train more, and he like he's never backed out of a fight, like there's sometimes where you just need to back out of a fight because like you injured something or you're sick or something. Like I know life always doesn't match up. But he's never backed down, and then like he's always talking. He knows all the like culture, like the UFC, all this stuff. Like he like watches that stuff like religiously almost. And then you're like, I was even just watching like his Instagram story, and then he's like. First, he's like going for a run at like 4 a.m. or whatever, like doing that stuff, and then you're watching like, oh, he's playing like PS4 or whatever, and you're like, yeah, they're just chilling, and you watch what he's playing. He's playing UFC on PS4, and then later they're like building a gym in his garage so they can train even more.
Yeah,
like he
so
already goes,
like
he already goes to 2-3 gyms, and then he had to build another gym in his garage so he could practice. And I'm just like. I don't love it nearly as much as that guy. Like, and I have such respect for that, and like I want that. Like I want something that I love that much that I'm just all about it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I had that, like I was saying, like with GMV for a little bit, but just right now I don't have that thing that I'm putting all my shit into.
For sure, yeah.
But
well, now's the time to figure it out for yourself. And if you don't, not a big deal.
And that's the thing is I could always go back to working more.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not that risky. Oh, that's the other thing. I was watching Ray Dalio. So I'm just what do you call it? Not segueing.
Dropping names and
tangenting.
Spouting knowledge.
Ray Dalio was talking. I don't know. It just there's one concept of like, it's so basic and so obvious.
Yeah.
But just like risk and reward.
Oh yeah.
Is like, like a lot of the most successful people had to have taken like significant risk.
Yeah.
Usually.
High risk, high reward.
Right? Sure, it's literally that, right? Like,
no one got anywhere without some risk.
Because he put it, that analogy of like, he's sitting, like that fork in the road. He's like, your life, like it's all this stuff he was saying is very basic, but like, when someone else says it to you, you're like, yeah, totally.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, but he's like, forks in the road. Right, it's like you can. He's like he had a choice, like either like apparently. So I actually didn't know anything about Ray Dalio, but he was saying how he made a huge I didn't know who he was either. He made a huge like mistake about betting whatever on like there's going to be a crash, right? But obviously since 2008 there hasn't been a crash technically, I guess, or like sort of. Like we've been fruitful, like prospering since then. And so like something like he was like bankrupt pretty much, like he went out of business, like he was just like really like it was public failure, and he was like embarrassed and whatever. So he's like, okay, I have a choice here. I can either go get a stable job and just work for someone and whatever, and then take the safe route, or I can pursue the riskier route, which is that's the theme here, right? Is go riskier but chase after something that I really, really want, right? Like that's what I really want to try, like something that that might not be super, like, I don't know, we don't know if it'll happen or not, like I said, risky, but it's what you would want in the end anyway, right? So then obviously, because we all know him and or whatever, like all these people know him because he's a big investor and blah, 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 super successful guy or whatever, he went the risky route. But I know a concept, obviously, that like all these, like a lot of successful people, including himself, say, like Gary Vee and Tim Ferriss, is that when you take those routes and you're like, he's like, inevitably, and like they all say this, you're gonna fail.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're gonna fail. Like something, and it might not even be like, in that like something, you're gonna lose something. Right? Like it might just be like something happens totally unrelated and like, someone dies. Like you will lose something that's incredibly important to you. And it's how you deal with that. Right? Like, can you take those experiences and learn from them and use them? It's kind of like, it's that perspective thing. Yeah. Right? And it's like when people have like the worst situations where they're like, I'm so unfortunate and unlucky that all these things happen to me and whatever, right? And they use it as like a crutch or like a reason or as an excuse as to why that they're not going to do something or why they could never do something or why it's not going to happen. And they live that life, right? Or are you going to use that as the actual reason why you're going to, right? It's like, well, I was put in this, whatever situation, this shitty situation, but that taught me how to whatever, deal with that and overcome, or like chip on my shoulder gave me motivation. There's so many ways to like deal with that. Yeah. Whereas like for example, there's this guy I know, I'm not going to name him, but he always talks about like he had a really good chance at being, professional soccer player. And then he injured his knee or something. Yeah. And then I think he was just recovering from it. And then his brother wanted him to, was like, oh, you want to come play an exhibition match? And he was like supposed to not play. And this was like amidst like the calls, like he was talking to like some teams in Europe or something.
Shit.
And then he went to go play with his brother on this exhibition game, and he ruined his knee again. And then he couldn't obviously go to Europe to play because his knee was super ruined now because he shouldn't have played on it.
Shit.
And then since then, like he's never now he's like much older, not much older. He's like, this was in his 20s, so now he's like 35 almost kind of thing. So now he's like, that's his story. Like that's his, every time you talk to him about like real life stuff, he always talks about that. Yeah. And that's now become his narrative. And it's kind of like, to me, I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it, you know, like you had a chance and all that, and that's your thing. But like, is that the end now? Like, is that your story? Like when you like from now, like you're not that like old. You have a lot more time ahead of you, but like, are you gonna play that story on a broken record till like you're 60?
Yeah.
And that's gonna be your life story forever now? Is like, I almost made it onto a European team. Yeah. I injured my knee. I shouldn't have played in that exhibition game, and now I just work as whatever.
The door closed. But he didn't take a second to look around and be like, "Oh, there's other doors."
Right, you know? Now he's just sad. He's just
like,
sad.
Fucking let me back in this door.
He's just like, "Oh, I'm outside. I'm
gonna camp out here."
Yeah, right.
In a little bit.
But I think that like I know like I said I haven't experienced anything like terribly like twisted and fucked dramatically like really bad. But I believe in that kind of like, it is your perspective and how you frame things. Because I know there's people that have been in situations, and that's the reason why they're successful. Yeah, it's because I was put in that situation, and it gave me whatever. They can put it in whatever narrative. They taught me this, or like I have hard skin now, or whatever. To give me the motivation because I was put, like when you're, whatever. It's kind of like how the underdog always is. You want to cheer for them, and they have more motivation because they're the underdog.
We've talked about how it's like, I've had this too, but like some of our other friends, it's like, okay, I'm being tested right now. Now I have to pass this test because this is part of my journey. Like we have a friend that does like fighting and stuff, and he does that a lot. Like from what you've told me too, like he'll be like, oh, I'm just being tested right now to see like if I'll pull through. It's funny, almost like a test from God, I think it's super corny and dramatic, but it's like that Jocko whatever guy. Where he's like, good. Yeah, the most. I think like that's his most famous thing, right? Where he's like, good, right? I'm not saying that's it's funny that you brought that up because I was shown an ad for the gym we work at, and they use that.
That's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, good.
That's what we're gonna end with.
We're gonna end it on that. Good. You fucked up. Good. Now wallow in your pity. No, I'm just kidding. You pull yourself back up. Hopefully we're productive. You have more time December. We'll see how that pulls through. We'll see if I am more productive. I'm gonna try that list thing you told me, the P and the M thing.
Nice.
And maybe I'll add an S, so it'll be PMS.